step up there. Thank you, Lucy. Okay, so I've got the typical disclaimer with lots of words on a page that I'm not going to read out. You can find this on our website. Just a quick overview of our corporate snapshot and what our corporate structure looks like. Again, I'm not going to go into any of this in detail. You can grab this on our website. But what I would like to point out, and you can see that in our major shareholders, that we do have 2 other ASX-listed companies in our top 5 shareholders, which is pretty unique for a junior exploration company. And I think that goes to the testament of the quality of our projects. So a little bit of an investment highlight. So what is different about Godolphin? Why are we a great exploration company here in New South Wales? And really, I think it's about our focus on critical minerals and looking within New South Wales for opportunities to increase our portfolio. We started off as a copper and gold explorer, and we have now advanced into rare earths and other critical minerals. And we really have a team of discovery-focused geologists within our group, and they have a very strong technical background and that really discovery-focused philosophy. So that really does set us up well for exploring and developing projects. Now you can see from the map here, and you've probably seen this map from Ian's project presentation earlier as well. We are located in a really prominent position here in New South Wales in the Lachlan Fold Belt. So we have a large tenement package between Orange and Dubbo, which is our copper and gold focused portfolio. We have the Gundagai Gold Project, and more recently, in the last couple of years, we've really been focused on our rare earth project and building up that portfolio. We have a large tenement area there in Temora, around Temora, and also some tenements further north in New South Wales. So Narrabri has really turned out to be our flagship asset. We have just recently knotted up our 51% ownership, which is a great milestone for the company and one that we were looking forward to announcing. Now, we got involved in this project as an earn-in around 2 years ago, and at that point in time it had a really old 2004 JORC compliant resource that was based on basically the Dubbo zirconia model. So they were looking at zircons and gallium and all of these really interesting things. Now, when we actually did the due diligence on the project, we could see that really what they had done was only ever drilled air core, and they really hadn't even hit basement. They really didn't understand what the project was that they were looking at. They'd only ever drilled clays, and very sticky clays at that. So we thought there was an opportunity to actually look at this project differently, take a different deposit model style, and apply that philosophy to the exploration and development of this project. Now, what turned out after our first drilling campaign, so we, back 2 years ago now, when we took on the project, we got straight into drilling. We drilled 4 diamond holes so that we could start doing some early metallurgy, because that's really vitally important in these types of projects. What we wanted to know, and it's a really simple question, right? Because there's 2 types of rare earth projects, and we sort of call them hard rock and clay. Hard rock means it doesn't leach, and you have a really high capex cost to get it up and running. So we're talking, $1.5 to $2 billion plant, okay? And that may not be something that we're going to get a lot of in this country or around the world. In fact, that's a lot of investment. So if it does leach, it means that we have the potential for a leaching project, which the capex is only around 120 million. So that was a really exciting prospect. So we sent off 6 samples from those original 4 diamond holes, and they did leach, and in fact they leached quite well, which was really encouraging. We were already in the paddocks drilling another 29 diamond holes at that point in time, and the idea was to update our resource. So you can see the numbers there. So I still call it our maiden drilling campaign. It was 2 very close together, but we got 94.6 million tonnes at 739 ppm TREO, and that also included a 20 million tonnes at over 1,000 ppm TRE, so a high-grade pod, which was really very important. Now, in this maiden resource that we put out, we also were able to achieve 50% indicated. So that was really, really important because that gives us our next step into starting mining studies. You need to have that category. We also have a large inferred resource as well. Now, what I would like to point out in this picture that you can also see is that our resource was cut off, let's say, by the tenement boundary. So we can't report anything that sits outside of our tenement boundary, but it was also just in the indicated category, so that was okay. So you can see the numbers there, 126% uplift in the TREO grade from that older 2004 resource. And that's, again, maiden drill campaign. We got 30% increase in tonnage, and we also had a 50% of that indicated resource, which previously there was none. So that's a really, really good step for your first maiden drill campaign. So we have really been working closely with ANSTO and working with those guys to actually develop our leaching technologies and our diagnostic leaching test. So they did those first 6 samples, and they were based on 1 metre samples, so individual 1 metres down through not each drill hole, a couple of drill holes and across the deposit. And that was that, does it leach or not? Once we found out that it did, we wanted to know, well, obviously we're not going to mine it in 1 metre intervals, so what happens if we put a whole big of chunk in there and leach that? And so we did another 15 samples composited, and then we were able to get these amazing results. So you can see there the average ranges were between 80 to 95% extraction, and we really have been focused on those key magnet minerals. So they're the minerals that are used for permanent magnets, and they're used, and the demand for permanent magnets is expected to threefold, triplefold in the next 10 to 20 years with technologies that are designed for decarbonisation. We use them a lot in things like wind turbines, electric vehicles, but everything from your mobile phone, anything that has a GPS device. So they really are an important part of future technologies. Now, we also did some size fraction work. Now, Ollie had some really cool information about ore sorting. We've done that on a slightly smaller scale. We don't have a lovely ore sorting machine. But what we wanted to know was, does the rare earth minerals, do they sit in a certain size fraction? So is there a way that we can upgrade our grade by screening and getting rid of a portion that we don't actually have to leach? And again, this is just the first step in these types of investigations, but it really did show that we could double the grade by doing a small screening process up front. So that means that we could potentially get rid of 80% of the mass without actually getting rid of any of the rare earth elements, and then put it into leaching. So that's going to be something we're obviously going to investigate further down the track. And it really does show that we might be able to have a really profitable, low capital cost development potential. Now, the image that you can see there is actually our samples when they were being leach tested at ANSTO, and they look a little bit like milkshakes, but you don't want to drink them. So getting a little bit more techie here, we have spoken about it being a clay-hosted project. We were very fortunate because we are the only clay-hosted project in New South Wales, and obviously that means a lot to the New South Wales government to understand this type of deposit and how it may be, how they might be able to find more elsewhere in New South Wales. So they actually took all of our 31 diamond drill cores down to Londonderry and they high-logged them for us. So that gave us from top to bottom mineralogy. And what you can see, and just to keep it really simple, is that all of that red from top to bottom is all kaolin clay, and that is very important in hosting rare earth mineralisation. Most of the iron absorbed clay deposits that people would know about, they need this kind of mineral, and the rare earth individual elements will stick on the outside of it. So we've got that. What we don't quite have is that our rare earth minerals actually aren't exactly stuck on the outside. It's called adsorbed. Ours are slightly inside, but there's enough of them hanging out so they can be liberated, and we've done that testing. So that's why we're getting such great recoveries. So we are not exactly ionic, but we're pretty darn close. Now, to follow that up, ANSTO also did some QEM scan for us. And what that means is that they were able to see the mineralogy, and that really helps us understand what is leaching and how. And what we could see is that we really have this microcrystalline rare earth minerals, which is why the screening worked so well and we were able to upgrade. So I mentioned that we could, double our grade, and in some instances, one particular sample, we were able to increase that by 400%, which is amazing, right? So doing this kind of work at this early stage really lets us understand the deposit and how we might be able to develop it. Now, I mentioned before that you saw where the resource outline was in relation to the tenement boundary. So, that obviously was a concern to us. So we wanted to pick up more ground, and we'd obviously been actively looking for ground that might become available in the area. And we've picked up Trungley, which surrounds that project, Cambrai on the east, and we also have Bingara in the north of New South Wales. So I'll just pop this one on to show you. So you can see the centre of the image there is the actual Narrabri resource, and we now have all of that ground that's hatched there in red, but also everything that's in a polygon is a part of our Narrabri project. That's 40 kilometres north-south and about 20 kilometres east-west, and much of that is prospective for rare earth clay-hosted mineralisation. Now, we do know, and it's hard to show in a 2D kind of format, that Narrabri itself is outcropping granite hills, and there's a natural gradient to the northwest towards a creek in the distance. Now, all of that area is really prospective for rare earth elements, because as the granite weathers, the rare earths are released and they get stuck on the clay particles and they move all around in the weathered profile. And obviously with gravity, they go downhill. So it's really, really fantastic that we've been able to pick up all of this ground. We also knew that the resource extends into the tenement to the north, and now we have that ground as well. Now, moving back to our copper, gold and base metals projects, so this is the ground in and around Orange. We do have a very large tenement package, and late last year we did some work on our Yeovil and Goodrich. Now, I'm just, some numbers there that you can see from the Yeovil resource itself. If we were to put those numbers together and use the same calculation that Ian used for Boda, it would actually be higher grade. Mind you, they've got 500 million tonnes and we've got 12, but we don't have 200 kilometres of drilling. So apples and oranges. Much earlier stage, but yeah, really, really great project. Copper Hill East, again, is south of Alkane's Boda and Kaiser project. And again, we've got the same Ordovician Molong volcanic belt rocks. Work that we've done there has indicated that we've got the same age intrusives as Cadia, Boda, Kaiser. So really, really prospective ground. And Gundagai, we haven't done any work on recently, but we do still have that. It's an orogenic gold project down there in the southern part of the Lachlan Fold Belt. So a nice picture of some shiny core. Any geologist loves to see that coming out of a hole, especially when you've been drilling the previous 12 months on a clay-hosted project, because clay is not pretty and it's not fun. So from a geological perspective. So getting some nice chalcopyrite in our drill holes is always good to see, and you can see the results there. Yeovil is an amazing tenement. It's over 20 kilometres strike length of copper mineralisation, and so that's occurrences at surface, old historic workings by the old timers. You can walk up and find malachite, which is a copper mineral poking out of the ground. Really, really exciting. And we have drilled a couple of holes and we've got some really interesting hits. It's not often that you get over 1% copper in a drill hole, and all of our holes that we have drilled, we have managed to do that. Specifically on Goodrich, which I will move on to. No, I won't. So Goodrich itself, when we drilled the hole there, we drilled 2 holes into the project. I'll just move back so it doesn't confuse you. Oops. One hole went into and under the old workings, and we intersected copper and magnetite high grade, which was typical of what the old timers were mining. What we also drilled was a hole from south in towards the deposit, and we actually intersected disseminated copper mineralisation 20 metres from surface. So this is completely different style of mineralisation than what has ever been seen at Goodrich before. So typically you see that high grade stuff, and that's pretty attractive, but limited in size potential. Now, that particular hole went through a fault, and then we hit, the similar kind of mineralisation that was typical at Goodrich. So I really like that project in the fact that we have now identified a different mineralisation style, and these high-grade pods of chalcopyrite and magnetite quite commonly sit off to the side of a porphyry deposit. So I've seen this kind of thing elsewhere in New South Wales, and I think that potentially the high-grade ore at Goodrich has been taking people's attention away from where the actual very large porphyry may be. So that's something that we're obviously going to follow up in the future. Moving on, we are, you would have seen that we've announced that we've done a deal to sell Lewis Ponds. So Lewis Ponds is one of our most advanced copper and gold base metals projects. And now that deal does include the entire tenement, and the deal is actually over a period of time to allow us to have non-dilutive funding to continue exploration activities across the rest of our large portfolio and move those things forward. So that's a really, really positive step for Godolphin. Just to show you a bit of our timeline that we've got set from February until July, so the next 6 months, we are going to be doing a mining study on Narrabri. So we have got enough information now to put in some inputs for the engineering companies to come up with some numbers. And that's really around us trying to understand whether it can be economic and what the next steps are. We obviously have a feeling because we've seen all the results, and we obviously have compared ourselves to peers in this space. So we're feeling pretty confident, but we just want to have some numbers around that. We're going to be, a part of that project, we'll be doing some more metallurgical test work with ANSTO. So we've done the diagnostic testing, which is the first stage, and now we need to move up the game and get into slurry testing. So that's a bigger sample and testing on those leaching parameters there. We're going to do more mineralogy. It was really, really helpful for those first few samples that we did to understand the mineralogy. We worked out that, yes, we did have some monazites and xenotime, but under leach conditions, they don't leach. So all of the rare earths that we were getting aren't from those minerals. So that's really handy to know. But also, because we're not leaching monazites or xenotimes, we don't really have a high thorium or uranium problem. So that's really positive as well. We obviously want to increase the size of the resource, and we need to do some more diamond drilling to do that. We do choose to do diamond, which is again quite unusual for a clay-hosted rare earth project, but we've found that by doing diamond drilling, we get a really quality sample. We can use that not just for the assays, but we can use it also for the metallurgical testing that we need to do, and it actually can drill into bedrock, and that's been really helpful to understand the geology of the region by doing that as well. So we'll have those results coming out over the next 6 months, and along with some results from some surface work that we're planning to do on our Copper Hill East and Yeovil tenements. And that's me for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Another great presentation. So look, again, a few minutes for questions. There's one there from Trent.
Thanks, Jeneta. It's Trent from GBA. Can you talk a bit more about the geology of Narrabri? Are the rare earths transported, or is it more like in situ weathering of a Jurassic alkaline, like an exhalative? That's the first one. Yeah, so it's a Devonian peralkaline granite, which is the Narrabri granite that is actually weathering in situ. There's other, varieties of granite, because generally you have a few different varieties of the same suite in the same area. So we look at A-type granites and the in situ weathering through the very thick weathering profile, and over a very long period of time releases the rare earths from the granite as it breaks down, so rock turning to soil, and they start attaching themselves to the clay particles and moving around in that weathered profile. So that's exactly as you were mentioning. Yeah. Okay. Have you done any testing of the
the granite source? Is it enriched in rare earths also?
So I mentioned that we were doing diamond drilling, and so we are drilling into the bedrock. So we do have those samples, and it does show that it's enriched, but it's not to the percent degree that you would need to mine. So the whole idea around mining a clay deposit is that you just go and dig it up. There's no drill and blast, so you don't have those costs. You just pick it up with a shovel and put it in a truck and take it away. So that really reduces the cost of production.
Okay, I've got one more. Just in terms of your post-recovery basket of rare earths, what percentage of the magnet rare earths do you have?
It's variable, and we haven't sort of done an average at this point in time. It's around about the 26%.
Okay, thank you.
And Murray.
Murray Hutton from Geos Mining. On the theme of International Women's Day, I am proud to say that we have a majority of females on our staff, and it's all great. And can I say congratulations that we have our first female host of this. I must say that you are infinitely more easy on the eye than Julian. May you return many times. Question for Jeneta. You come across a lot of companies reporting rare earth resources, and they all just report it as total rare earth oxides. As we know, some are worth a hell of a lot of money and others are as cheap as dirt. Is there a better way of reporting these resources so that investors understand which rare earth resources are worth more than others?
Yeah, that's a great question, Murray.
I don't ask stupid questions, Jeneta.
Nice. Look, there is no standard, and we actually, when we started, working on this project, we did a lot of research of what other companies in Australia were actually, how they were reporting it, so that we could report in a similar way, so that it was easier for investors to actually compare one project to the other. But you're right, people know that cerium is not worth a lot, and a lot of these projects have a lot of cerium in them. Our particular project does have cerium. It doesn't really leach that well, so it's not such of a concern for us. But in saying that, when Lynas got together, and one of the first offtake deals they did was with a French company, and it was for cerium. And if they didn't have that, when things went pear-shaped, they would have went pear-shaped. So it's only that they had that agreement in place for something that we think is worthless that actually Lynas is still here today. So, 6 to one, half a dozen of the other. But I do believe that we need to have an industry standard for reporting these elements, definitely. There's just not one at this point in time. And I know that there's a group a consultant group over in Perth that have mentioned this and are working on something. So it's in progress.
Thank you. And one quick question from me, Jeneta. Why the change in focus for the company from copper gold to critical minerals?
Well, I guess Ian sort of maybe come across or said something earlier today that made me laugh, because he said critical minerals, it's basically the whole periodic table. So I'm an explorer, right? So we want to explore for metals, the whole periodic table, except gold. So we do consider tin, copper, rare earths, and lithium, all of those sorts of things are considered critical minerals. And we're focusing on that because that's the future. It is the future of the country, the world. We all know that there's got to be, there's going to be a big transition to decarbonisation, and these particular minerals are really important to that. And we don't have enough. And yes, today we might have enough, but what we know that we're going to need for the future, we just don't have it. And if we sit back and wait for the need to be there, we're going to be on the back foot. We need to be on the front foot as a country. So that's why we're in that space.
Thank you.
Could I ask which are your most common rare earth elements?
That would be cerium and yttrium. So they're the most in abundance. But they're not the most that we leach out. So what goes in doesn't actually come out in the same way. Yeah.
No other questions, ladies and gentlemen? No? Okay. Thank you, and thank you again to Jeneta.
Thank you.